Hi everyone, it's Liam here from Rating the Races. So we move on to day 3 of Aintree, the final day, obviously the feature race being the Grand National, where I've already posted my video for that race a little while ago, which you've all hopefully already seen. If not, if you see this via the email, the video below is about my Grand National horses, where you'll find the 4 that I'm on. I think they've all got great chances, to be honest. So let's have a look at the other races on the card, starting off with the 3-mile handicap hurdle, featuring Nurse Susan, who we've already selected. We've already got a bet on Nurse Susan using the early analysis. Unfortunately, we did lose the other one, Mr. Hope Street for Dan Skelton. I do want to replace him, so we're going to have essentially 3 in the race. I want the other Dan Skelton horse. So let's go quickly over Nurse Susan, why I like that. Ran at Cheltenham, over 2.5 mile in the Martin Pipe, under Tristan Durrell. They ended up being in front, not out of design, just because of how the race, nobody jumped off and he ended up in front. Tristan did, and she ran well for a long way, Nurse Susan, before potentially getting tired. She hadn't run for 400 and something days, I think it was. 418 days. She ran well for a long way. I think she'll step forward from that, and I think she will still run a really nice race here. She goes back up to 3 mile, which I think is key. She's also got the cheek pieces on for the first time, which should help as well. I mean, there's plenty of positives, to be fair, about Nurse Susan, and she's the type of horse that could run well here and maybe end up at somewhere like Sandown at the end of the season, to find a race there that they might be able to win with her. We've already backed her. I still think she's going to run a really nice race here. I think the biggest danger to her is the stablemate Catch'em Derry. Now, Catch'em Derry is £3 better off with Jericho de Repinot for their Potemps final runs, where they finished. Catch'em Derry was 3rd and Jericho de Repinot was 2nd. Now, going into that race, I had slight question marks about Jericho de Repinot over the 3-mile trip. Maybe he didn't quite stay on all the way to the line. I also feel he was ridden to win the race, and he wasn't able to. Catch'em Derry, I kind of feel was given a poor ride, given far too much to do under Harry Skelton. They got that wrong. He's going to keep Catch'em Derry a lot closer, or he's going to be getting there a lot earlier this time. The fact that the Skeltons have such a good record in this race as well, they had a few winners of this, including last year with Gwenny May Boy. I think West Balboa won it the year before that, and they won it in 2019, but I can't remember who it was. The Skeltons have a really good record in this race. Catch'em Derry ran a good race in the Potemps final when not being given the best of rides. I can totally understand why he will improve for that. I think he'll go very, very close. And I think he'll reverse the form with Jericho de Repinot. And if he does, that probably wins the race, to be fair. Catch'em Derry, you can still get 13-2 about. I think Catch'em Derry will go off favourite, especially when people realise the good record that the Skeltons have in this race. And they'll start watching that race back and seeing how far back Catch'em Derry is before staying on really strongly for 3rd. So both of the horses from the Skelton yard are my selections. The one I was worried about, that I'm delighted to see isn't running, is Navajo Indy. We backed that in the 2.5. Unfortunately, it didn't run. And it was going to run in the 3, but it apparently hasn't eaten up, so they've taken him out. So yeah, Catch'em Derry at 13-2, and Nurse Susan we are already on. Moving on to the second race of the day, the 155, which is the Turner's Mersey Novices Hurdle over 2.5 mile. Personally, I think Nicky Henderson's starting to get things badly wrong. I really do. I think he's getting things confused. He thinks he's got the best horses every single time. He thinks he always justifies his decisions, but I think he justifies them wrong. However, on this occasion, I think he's got it spot on. Lulamba running here maybe did need that extra trip at Cheltenham. Did look, I thought East India Dock was going to run away from Lulamba, turning into the straight, and ended up being beaten by Lulamba. So even if East India Doc had held off Poneros, wouldn't have held off Lalamba, or didn't hold off Lalamba. Lalamba should really appreciate the step up in trip. And he gets all the weight allowances, doesn't he? Because he's a 4-year-old. What's he getting? £10. £10 over these. And to be honest, other than Horace's Pearl, I don't think any of the others are that good, to be honest. I think they're going to end up in handicaps, or they're going to end up winning grade 2s and grade 3s, but not grade 1s. Horace's Pearl is the unknown for Fergal O'Brien. He's 7 though. Yeah, he wins his races and he's been winning them quite nicely. I don't feel that Horace's Pearl will ever end up being right at the top of the category, the 2.5 mile hurdlers, whereas I think Lalamba could certainly be one of those. We've already tipped up Lalamba at a slightly bigger price. I think it was 6-4. Now, biggest price is 5-4, 11-10 in most places. I actually think Lalamba will go off odds on here, and I think Lalamba will win this quite comfortably. I think he's that far clear of these. Moving on to the 230, you can see the two that I've selected here. The first one, just to give another recap to, Happy Go Lucky. Think he's got a great chance. I thought it was a perfectly good run at Cheltenham when finishing 4th in the Old Teamer off a mark of 100 and... was it 140 or 130? Off a mark of 140. Great effort. Take out Town, who won by 11 lengths. Happy Go Lucky is bang there. Now Town doesn't run. Has just been taken out of this race, which leaves it really open to... These are all handicappers now, rather than a potential graded horse being in the race. I think Happy Go Lucky is going to run a really nice race here. We've got to remember, he did actually win this race a few years ago, back in 2021, off a mark of 149. He's £10 lower now. It was a good run at Cheltenham. If you took out the winner, he was there or thereabouts, and I do feel sometimes jockeys don't quite go for it when they know they can't win the race. I kind of feel that happened a little bit with Happy Go Lucky. Yes, he's 11. I still think he's going to go really close. He's still quite lightly raced, to be fair, as well. He's only had the 14 runs. Yeah, he's going to run a nice race, and we're on a much better price than that, obviously, now with that non-runner changing the market a bit. Second horse that I definitely want to be on now is Lemilos, who has been declared. I talked this one up. I said about I thought it was interesting. It was all about whether he was going to take his chance, because I feel this is his trip. 3 mile, 3 mile 1, 3 mile 2, and yet they've been running him over shorter trips this season, and he's been running well and picking up prize money without really without winning a race that I felt he deserved. The only race he's won was a Veterans Handicap Chase. He won that off a mark of 139. Yes, he's up a little bit. He's up to 142 now. But he won a Coral Gold Cup, formerly the Hennessy, in 2022 off 146. He's not back up to that mark. He went off the 9-2 favourite that day as well. He's still off a lower mark. He's now up to the correct trip. He's running at Aintree, where he actually ran well for a long way in the Grand National. We had him in 2023 in the Grand National. He ran well for a long way. Granted, this is a completely different course, but at least he's been to Aintree of sorts and ran a good race. I don't see any negatives about this one, other than his age, maybe. You know, he's 10. But we're quite a big fan of Happy Go Lucky, who is 11. The favourite's a 9-year-old. Dr. Ken is a 9-year-old. Doc Pick Me is 9. This really does look like a race where the old guard they're going to be able to hold their own. So yeah, our two selections in this race are Happy Go Lucky and Lemilos. I think Lemilos at 12s is a good price. I think he's going to run a really nice race here under Harry Skelton, and this could be one of those that they finally get a bit more prize money and probably seal the trainer's title winning that race. Oops. Moving on to the 305, the race before the National. It is the Ivy Liverpool Hurdle. It's a grade 1 over 3 mile, and I'm confused. I really am. I'm confused about this. Why is Teapu such a big price at 5-2? everything bar Kit's Buhel, he can beat. He got beat in a sprint last time by Bob Ollinger. It turned into a sprint and Bob just had a little bit more pace. Sam Ewing's not going to allow that to happen this time, I don't feel. And I think he's going to be... I think he's going to win this, quite comfortably, to be honest. I don't have any of these as good as the horses that have beaten him previously. Bob Ollinger, Lossiemouth, Cider Burley. Yeah, considering he's gone off 9-4 favourite for the Stayers Hurdle 2 years ago, he went off 7-4 this year. Why is he 5-2 for this race when the horse that beat him isn't in the race? He pulled away from the Wall Park comfortably. Buddy One was behind, Lucky Place was behind, Home by the Lee unseated, but I really don't believe Home by the Lee would have beaten Teahupoo. I don't understand the price there. I think that's crazy too big. It would not surprise me if Teahupoo goes off 7-4, 6-4 sort of price. Just needs to be given a positive ride and making sure that they turn it into a 3-mile race. Hidden Valley Lake could well be in there to do that. I know it's different trainer, but they might be running Hidden Valley Lake in this to go forward and make it a strong pace for Teahupoo to allow him to win the race, as they don't need it to turn into a sprint, which suited Bob Ollinger last time. Yeah, 5-2 about Teahupoo. I think that's a good price. We then move on to the National. I'm not going to talk you through those. If you've not watched my video, why not? So we'll move straight on to the 5 o'clock, which is the Maghull's Novices Chase. And this features a few of those that ran in the Arkle, including the 2nd placed Only the Night, the 4th placed L'Eau de Sud, and the 5th placed... who was 5th? Touch Me Not. Now, there wasn't a lot between the front 4. Magsborough should have won the race, and if they ran it again and he jumped better, he would win the race. Magsborough was definitely the best horse in the race. Django Bay, yesterday, to be fair, ran well enough to suggest that actually it wasn't a bad run. Only by Night ran on into 2nd. L'Eau de Sud actually jumped the last in the lead, and was probably trying to get after Magsborough and keep up with Magsborough when Magsborough made a mistake. That left L'Eau de Sud in the lead. L'Eau de Sud then, was in the lead for a long time before jumping the last and maybe just finding that he'd gone a little bit too soon. They're going to wait a lot longer tomorrow, I'm sure. They're going to wait. They're going to let something else make the running. They're going to sit behind. And I feel that the correct horse from the Arkle will win it this year. So I think L'Eau de Sud should have won the... Magsborough should have won the Arkle, and I think L'Eau de Sud was the horse that would have finished 2nd. If Magsborough had jumped, L'Eau de Sud would have finished 2nd. I know that sounds weird, but I think he would have been held on to a little bit longer. They would have tried to wait. And yeah, he just ended up in front too soon last time. I think he'll reverse the form with... Only by Night, and I think it'll be a nice winner here for the Skeltons. Currently at 6-4, I think it's the right price. I think he's the best horse in the race. I think we'll reverse the form with Only by Night. Caliph de Burley is a good handicapper, and the others I just don't feel are good enough. So at 6-4, I'm happy to have a bet on L'Eau de Sud. And finally, moving on to the last race. I'm having to rush through this a little bit. I do actually have a hospital appointment to get to, so we're getting this out as soon as I can. I do have a selection in the bumper. I don't normally have selections in bumpers, not a type of race that I look at and I get interested in. Much prefer them to go over hurdles. But I do like one in this race, and I think he's overpriced. And that horse is Killwater, who is currently available at... You'll notice I'm loading up the market now. I've not loaded this up, left it there, waited for horses to be backed in like some analysts do. They wait for the horse to be backed in and then try and claim a price that is on their screen, or sometimes they don't even show what's on their screen because they know the 8-1 they're going to talk about is now 5-1 because it's being really well supported. But anyway, the selection I like here is Kill Water, who's available at 11s. You'll also notice I only talk about these types of prices. 11 to 1, which is at Bet Victor, Sky Bet, and VBet. None of these prices from Bet365 because everybody knows you can't get those, or you do for a couple of weeks and then you get banned. So yeah, people that talk up these prices that are unachievable as well is ridiculous. So Kill Water at 11s. Now why do I like this horse? Kill Water has only had the one run. When winning an Irish bumper for... Who was he running for at the time? Just looking at my other screen. Mr. Crawford. He was running for Mr. Crawford and he was winning a bumper and he beat a horse called the Flying King. Now the Flying King is the interesting angle through that horse. He has some good form himself. He has come out and won a bumper since. He also finished second by a neck in a bumper and he won a 3 mile point to point. But I kind of feel that the Flying King... So the Flying King's been beaten twice in his career. Once by our selection here, Kill Water, and once by a horse called I'll Sort That. Now I've got my eye on I'll Sort That for a race over hurdles. I don't know when it's going to be. Probably a handicap somewhere. That horse caught my eye when finishing 7th in a maiden hurdle when sent off 100 to 1. And was really green that day. Ran in a good race. Kellestois won the race. Finished 7th at 100 to 1. Jockey said the gelding made a mistake at the first and ran green. Since then, that horse has dropped into bumpers and he's won both of them. I have a feeling that this I'll Sort That is going to end up being a nice horse. He's actually in a race on Sunday in a grade 2. They've put him in a grade 2 hurdle having just won 2 bumpers. He was 7th, sent off 100 to 1 for a maiden hurdle. How can he be now running in a grade 2 hurdle? That's because I think there's something in this I'll Sort That, and he's one I want you to actually add to your NAGME. Add him to your RTR NAGME. I'll Sort That for potentially a handicap. It might be a long-term plot. But with that in mind, I think therefore the Flying King has been beaten by 2 horses. I'll Sort That and Kill Water. Now Kill Water is our selection in this race. I know it's a little bit, long-winded to get to our selection. I thought that was a really good performance from Kill Water. They paid a lot of money for him. They brought him over to the Philip Hobson Johnson White stable. I've got a feeling that there's a lot in this horse and he's going to be a very nice horse going forward and there's going to be plenty to like about him. I've got question marks about some of those at the front. El Keros, I know he finished 5th at Cheltenham. But he's going to be ridden by David Maxwell. Green Splendour, I wasn't that fussed with his effort when he was 5th recently at Leopardstown. Mossy Fen Road probably wants further. Cocktail Brute, I think, wants further. So I've come to this horse that I like via another horse, via a horse that I've got in my NAGME. And at 11 to 1, I'm happy to take a chance on a horse in a bumper. That we might get a good run out of Kill Water. I think he's going to prove to be a graded horse over hurdles as well, and I think so is the Flying King. And I think definitely that horse that I'll Sort That, I think will end up winning a nice race somewhere. So they are my selections for Saturday. Quick recap: Catch Him Derry we're going to add to Nurse Susan. The Skeltons love this race. Catch Him Derry will be ridden slightly differently, I feel. Jericho de Repene was ridden to win the race at Cheltenham and didn't. Catch Him Derry was ridden to run on and nearly caught Jericho de Repene. Now that he'll be ridden to try and win this because they like winning this race, I think he'll reverse that form. Lulamba, totally get why Nick Ensign's running him here, getting all the allowances. I don't think this is the strongest grade 1 I've seen. The 2 old boys, Happy Go Lucky and Lamilos in the 3 mile handicap chase. We're already on Happy Go Lucky at a bigger price. Has won this race off a £10 higher mark. And Lamilos has actually won a Hennessy off a £4 higher mark. Now runs over the trip that I think he's been needing all season. Tiapu, I think, is overpriced at 5 to 2. Kits Bahal is the only unknown in the race for me. In the 5 o'clock, Lotus Sud, I think, will be ridden slightly differently compared to his Arkle run. He's the one to beat this time, rather than Majborough, who they were trying to beat. This time they'll ride him as the one to beat and be waiting as long as possible. And finally, Killwater, as I've just mentioned, in the bumper. I think he's going to run a nice race here and prove to be well above average.